Joining us now is Congressman Rob Wittman, representing the 2nd District of Virginia. He's a Republican. He's also in charge of the Sea Power Readiness Committee and all the ships and all the Navy and all that good stuff. Congressman Wittman, Mr. Chairman, good to have you.
Good morning, John. Great to be with you.
So much to talk about, so little time. Let's get to the North Koreans and the president saying that he'll sit down with North Korean dictator, leader Kim Jong-un to have a general discussion. What do you think?
Listen, I think it's a major breakthrough, and I think it's an indicator of the success of his maximum pressure policy on North Korea, working with China and President Xi Jinping there to create that maximum pressure along with other folks in the world community. We know that those sanction motions in the UN passed unanimously. I think that is, again, a direction of leadership from the president in solving what is not just a problem for the United States, but a rogue nation threatening the world. And I am confident that the president is a shrewd enough and skilled enough negotiator to go in there and make sure that this is, at first, a verifiable effort on him reducing and eventually getting rid of his nuclear arsenal. So, and listen, it's a real accomplishment for Kim Jong-un, with all the rhetoric that came from him, to now say that they are suspending the testing in their nuclear program. That's significant because we know they were on an accelerated track of testing. We know the things that they were able to achieve and the things that they were on track to achieve. I think it's a positive development. You know, even the naysayers, I think, have very little to go on other than to say, well, you know, nobody else has met with Kim Jong-un, so there's bound to be something wrong with President Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un. But I think that you must, you know, pursue diplomacy, and especially, too, when I think the sanctions and the maximum pressure campaign have worked. So here we are, and I'm anxious to see what Kim Jong-un is willing to do, and, again, what we in the international community will be able to verify, and that's the key going into this. And I know the president is going to make that the first issue in the discussions with Kim Jong-un.
Can you elaborate on that, Congressman, Chairman Wittman, when you talk about verification? Like, just explain what you would mean and how that would work.
Sure. Well, you know, they have several different elements of how they develop a nuclear weapon. The first is the actual nuclear warhead itself. There's a lot of technology that goes into that. And then you have to produce fissile material, that radioactive material that can create an explosion. So you have to be able to verify that they are no longer producing that material. And, of course, you use centrifuges and other complex machinery to do that. So you have to verify that they're not producing any more of that. Secondly, you have to get them to verify the number of nuclear warheads that they have now and what they would do to disassemble those to make them inoperative. And then also the launch vehicles. You know, the big thing is the launch vehicle, an intercontinental ballistic missile. To be able to get the warhead to the United States, you'd have to be able to verify that they are making those platforms inoperative. Now, they may say, oh, we're going to use that for space exploration, but it's a very, very different technology that goes into how that is constructed for space launch than it is for a intercontinental ballistic missile. So all of those things would have to be verified, John. The launch platform, the production of fissile or nuclear weapons grade material, and the nuclear warhead itself.
All right, so it sounds like, Chairman Wittman, that you're viewing the potential meeting here with Kim Jong-un as a positive development, right?
I am, yes, absolutely. I think by any measure it is. I think it's a significant achievement, obviously one that nobody else has been able to achieve, and one where, again, going in, President Kim Jong-un has said that they have suspended their testing program. That in and of itself is a very, very successful accomplishment because of the aggressive schedule that the North Koreans have pursued in developing their weapons program up to this point.
So, look, the president has made clear that his goal is denuclearization. Obviously, Kim Jong-un and the North Korean government, the communists, know that. So you would have to think that them coming to the table is a sign that the sanctions and the pressure that the U.S. has been putting on them economically has got to be making an impact, right? I mean, why else would they come to the table?
No, I agree, John. I think that's absolutely the case. I think that the sanctions have had a profound effect. We have seen pictures that have come out of North Korea where Kim Jong-un has allowed the members of his military to essentially fields to try to find anything that's left over in the agricultural fields there to eat. I mean, that is a sign of true desperation when you cannot feed your military forces and you're giving them time off from work to go scrounge for food. I think that's a sign of just how desperate North Korea is in relation to these sanctions. And, you know, China's been a big partner with that because in the past sanctions have not worked because China hasn't been a serious partner there. So
right.
President Trump's relationship with Xi Jinping is an important part of that, too.
Well, we were saying earlier, Chairman Wittman, a little bit earlier, that when President Xi went to Mar-a-Lago, remember back early in the days of the Trump presidency, and he made the commitment to the president. I'm sure he looked him in the eye and made the commitment that he would be a part of these sanctions. You know, then the president and our U.S. trade officials find out that since that meeting that Chinese exports to North Korea went up 50%. So Xi just lied to the president. And I think, you know, the president saw those numbers and he's had, you know, basically said, I had enough. So there's an old saying, right? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I think the president has taken that. Let's get to these tariffs. Look, I'm in favor of them. And right off the bat, as chairman of USC Power, okay, so there's two issues here. There's U.S. jobs, making steel, making aluminum, and then there is a national security element. So let me just give you the one national security element I want to get you to comment on. We're down to 5 aluminum smelters in the United States. We're only producing 10% of our own aluminum, and we only have 1 military-ready aluminum plant left in the entire country. Don't you think that's problematic, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, John, I do think strategically to have aluminum and steel producers in the United States that can produce military-grade aluminum and steel is key. I believe that strongly. But also know, too, John, that we do have partners out there that work with us that help us in producing some of the components of our ships. The new Columbia-class ballistic missile submarines, the missile launch tubes there, parts of those are actually cast in a foundry in England. And England actually helped us in a joint project in designing those missile tubes. So there are some areas where we can have strategic alliances with allies where their specialty industries are able to do those things. And we certainly want to be mindful of what happens with any type of tariffs on those nations. And the president has put some conditions in here to be more surgical with this, as he says. And we also need to keep in mind, too, John, I've had a number of conversations with businesses in my district that produce advanced machines that they export. And in that export realm, remember, they have to be able to compete, and they're competing against others that are using steel off the world marketplace. So I want to make sure that this is a win-win for everybody. I mean, obviously, it's great to see an excitement in the steel and aluminum milling industries and foundries. But I want to make sure, too, that our companies here, and I have a number of them in my district that have expressed concerns about what this would mean to them. So, and we've expressed that to the White House, and I've talked to folks about where I think the president could be better in the policy on tariffs for our U.S. industries. And again, they just want to be competitive. And again, they're in a worldwide marketplace too. So I think as this shakes out, hopefully we will be able to preserve those businesses that have to be competitive. And again, we do know other nations, no doubt about it, dump steel on the market. But if there is a unlevel playing field as far as the cost of raw materials, a number of our producers here get put in a really, really tough spot. And I want to make sure that we're being fair to them, because there are also hundreds of thousands of jobs related to those small businesses. And I have a number of them in the district, whether they're machine shops, whether they produce, machinery that is either used here or is exported, we owe it to them, too, to make sure that this is a win-win for everybody. And, John, I think that we can do that. I still think there's some adjustments to the president's policy that need to be made. I suspect as this unfolds, you'll probably see this to become a dynamic back and forth between these other countries and the United States. And, again, I don't want to see this result in an open trade war, because I do think that has negative effects, too. So I want to make sure that we're getting this right.
Well, Congressman, we're already in a trade war. We're losing. We have a $630 billion trade deficit. The money flows out to other countries. You try to sell a car in the European Union or in Germany, and you got a 29% tariff, 10% import duty tax, 19% value-added tax. You try to sell a car in China, they got a 50% tariff. You can't sell it. So we're already in a trade war. The problem is we have no bullets, we have no ammo, we have no armor, we have no army, and so we're losing. And so what the president has said is, yes, you're going to pay another 1.5 cents for a six-pack of beer or a six-pack of Diet Coke. You're going to pay another $250 for a $50,000 Lincoln Navigator. And if you're making a Boeing 777, you're going to pay another $25,000. But the total cost on that is $335 million. So this is a pittance. But look, you're right. There are constituents that have businesses that you have in your district that have been taking advantage of the fact that they can buy cheaper steel that's being produced by countries like China and Canada with government subsidies that are actually under the cost of production. So if your business is built on buying steel that is being subsidized by communist governments under the cost of production, I mean, there's going to be an adjustment that has to be made, right? I mean, it can't go on forever. I don't blame them for buying the cheap steel, but these prices are going to go up a little bit, and they're going to have to figure it out.
Sure. Well, it's, and there's a lot of moving pieces on this, John, as you point out. This is also a moving piece in the president's trade negotiators in negotiating with Mexico and Canada on NAFTA to make sure NAFTA is an agreement that provides additional benefits to the United States. And we've seen so far that it has not panned out anywhere near what was promised. The same with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, which the president said, no, we're not going to do that as a group negotiation. We're going to do that in a negotiation on a country-by-country basis. And I think this does strengthen the hand in a negotiation with those countries. The question is, how do you get to that sweet spot so that you can get a level playing field? And it's just not for steel. Steel is a symptom, but the illness is, as you point out, the overall trade imbalance, and it's in lots of commodities. So the president, from a business standpoint, gets it as far as how you get to all the different transport of products and sales of products back and forth, and make sure that is fair. I just, my concern is how this would immediately affect the businesses here that are in unique situations and producing and then having contracts and exporting. We want to make sure that they continue to hold that business, while making sure that, the trade imbalance gets addressed. So it's as you point out, it's complex, but the key is making sure that you don't have, negative impacts on existing U.S. businesses, and I think there's a way that we can achieve that. So.
All right, well, we'll see how it plays out. I want to thank Congressman Rob Wittman for being with us. Dr. Wittman, Republican Congressman, 2nd District of Virginia, and he is up for re-election. That'll be decided. What is the date? November? I know it's the first Tuesday in November. I should probably have that date memorized.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's November 8th, I believe, but I too have to check. So I'll make sure that your listeners,
November 6th,
along with all of us, we'll double check. But yes, it's the
November 6th.
The Tuesday after the first Monday in November.
That's November 6th.
November 6th. Got it.
Yep.
Okay,
I just opened up the calendar.
We got it.
Election Day, 2018, November 6th. Go out there and vote for Rob Wittman.